Good evening, everyone. My name is Maggie, and on behalf of Book Soup, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for our virtual event this evening with Paul Theroux in conversation with Guy Kawasaki discussing Under the Wave at Waimea. We're so excited and grateful that our bookstore can continue to bring authors and their works to the community during this time. We'll also be hosting more events in the near future, and you can learn about them on our website, booksoup.com, as well as our social media at BookSoup. Our next event is on Thursday, April 16th with Beto Arcos in conversation with Tom Schnabel, discussing music stories from the Cosmic Barrio. To submit a question during the event, please use the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen. If you see a question on the list that you'd like our speakers to answer, please click the like button. We'll try to answer as many questions as time will allow. Please do not use the sidebar chat to ask a question. Also support our bookstore and our authors and purchase a copy of tonight's featured book. Just click on the green purchase button that reads Under the Wave directly below the viewer screen. The link will redirect you to our website where you can continue your checkout process. We're also selling digital audiobooks and ebooks through Libro FM and Kobo for those who are interested. A little more about Paul. Paul is the author of many highly acclaimed books. His novels include The Lower River and The Mosquito Coast, and his renowned travel books include Ghost Train to the Eastern Star and Dark Star Safari. He was awarded a Royal Medal from the Royal Geographical Society for the encouragement of geographical discovery through travel writing. A little more about Guy. Guy is the former chief evangelist of Apple. He's also the co-founder of alltop.com and a founding partner at Garage Technology Venture. His 9 previous books include the international bestseller, The Art of the Start, as well as Reality Check and Macintosh Way. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the camera over to Guy. Enjoy the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. So Paul is in the North Shore of Hawaii, and I'm in Santa Cruz, California. And I'm going to ask you a real introductory question, Paul. But before I do, I'm going to tell you a Tom Clancy story, okay?
Sure.
So Tom Clancy was once at a press conference for a new book. And a reporter asked him, "What's your new book about, Tom?" And Clancy's response was, "It's about $26. So what's your new book about, Paul?
My new book, I don't know the price. I don't have a copy handy. Tom Clancy, that's pretty akamai. He actually knew the price of his book. Mine's around about that. It's about a surfer, the life of a surfer. He's a man who's older than most other surfers. He's in his 60s, and he's got a problem. The problem is that one day, while driving with his girlfriend back to his house, he's slightly toasted from smoking pakalole. He hits a man on a bicycle, and his girlfriend is very shocked by it. The man dies in the road near Waimea. Waimea Bay, which is right near where I am now. And bad things begin to happen to him. And his girlfriend says, "Do you realize what you did?" He says, "Yeah, I hit a drunk homeless guy." And she's kind of perplexed by this. And she says, you don't seem to understand what you did." He said, "Yeah, I hit a drunk homeless guy." She said, "You killed a man." And he kind of shrugs, but he doesn't really register it. And then things start going wrong in his life. And the book is about the things that are going wrong, where he's been in his life, and how to get his life back on track so that he can begin surfing again. One of the bad things that happens is that he almost drowns in Waimea Bay. So the book is that. Older guy, aging surfer, problem. And then the last third of the book is almost like a sleuthing story, finding out who the man was. And the process of finding out who he was takes you everywhere on this island in Oahu. Places where tourists seldom go. A lot of people don't go to these places. And he goes to the mainland too, because the man is from the mainland. And he finds out some very surprising things in the process. So that's the book. It's a book I started about 8 years ago. It was interrupted when the president began disparaging Mexicans. And I put the book away and I decided I would go to Mexico, write a book about Mexico, and destroy the stereotype of Mexicans. Then I came back and I resumed the book. So, I mean, a writer's life is it's not a straight line. I don't have a regular job. So I do what I need to do when I need to do it. And I loved writing this book, but I also felt an obligation to go to Mexico. So that was the interruption. And that book was called On the Plain of Snakes. It actually took me a year and a half driving. I was driving my own car around Mexico. And then when that was done, you know, a travel book, you take the trip and then you write the book. It's not, you don't say what happens next. It's not like writing a novel. You say, now what? What does the guy do? You know exactly what comes next. You go to Reynosa and then Saltillo and then, you know, San Luis Potosí. Then there's always, you know, something happening that you write about. So I don't have, no one writing a travel book should have writer's block. You get your diary, you know, that's where you went, just write it. So that's the book. Yeah.
Now, that little factoid there sort of boggles my mind. You can stop a book for a year and a half or 2 years and then resume writing a novel?
Yeah, sometimes it's better if you stop. You can get burnt out writing a book. So you write and you think that you need to write every day, but some days you really have nothing to write. You don't have a thought in your head. And that's a day when maybe you should do something else. And in terms of writing a book, I knew exactly what the first part of this book would be. It was about a third of the book. Joe Sharpie is the surfer. So, you know, opens, the first chapter is his happy life. It's the island of no bad days. And everything's going well. And then he has a drink, hits the man on the bike, kills him, then things go wrong. And I knew that at the end of that part of the book, say 150 pages-ish, that would be, that's the end of that part. Then that's a good place to maybe take a vacation, because if you sit down and then say, well, what next? You think you might force it. So you have to think very hard about what comes next. Most of writing is sitting, is wool gathering. It isn't right. Most writing isn't writing. I mean, it's about doing other things. You might be sitting on the beach. You might be riding a bike. You might be surfing. You're a surfer guy. And so you might be out on the water or on a bike. I mean, I get some great ideas riding my bike. I ride my bike here alone. So I go up a hill, and if you write in longhand, as I do, the book is in my head. So as far as putting a book aside for a period of time, not a bad idea. Putting away for a year and a half. You know, I was in Mexico. There are a lot of surf breaks in Mexico. Todos Santos and Baja, Pero Escondido, down on the Oaxaca coast. I met a lot of surfers there. And so then I was able to put that in the book later. It's not a problem putting a book away, but if you're trying to generate an income, you need to be doing something. So I wasn't putting the book away and, you know, gambling in Las Vegas. I was working. I was writing something else because I don't need to work at my age. I mean, I have plenty going on for me, but I need to be occupied by it. And apart from riding my bike, paddling my car, I get an outrigger canoe. You know, I really have no other, or swimming. I don't play golf. You know, I don't go to clubs. I just have this fairly simple life, outdoors or indoors. So putting a book away is a good idea. And feeling, say you have a book that's half done and you think, I'm stuck. Well, you're not stuck. Maybe you should do something else for a change and then go back to it. Many people have done that. Thomas Mann started a story called Tonio Kroger, and then put it aside, and then he went back to it and expanded. It became a novella. I mean, Joseph Conrad wrote a short story called Verloc. Wrote the short story, Verloc, went away and was doing some other things. He had a tough life. But then he went back and he picked up Verloc, the short story, and turned it into the Secret Agent novel. Many writers could tell you that they start something, put it aside, then go back to it, and it expands because they've thought about it. And so that's what happened with this.
But I have to say that I don't think it would occur to me that Donald Trump says that Mexicans are rapists and murderers and drug dealers. So I'm going to stop my novel and travel along the U.S.-Mexico border for a year and a half writing a book. I mean, did your wife say, Paul, I mean, what has gotten into your brain? That's dangerous. So what happened there?
Yeah, she did say it's dangerous. And as a matter of fact, I was driving my own car, and I was at that time in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I was working on this book, Under the Wave at Waimea. I had a title. I just called it my surf novel. And then I thought, I speak Spanish. I'm healthy, knock on wood. I could buy a disposable car, secondhand car, drive to the border, go up and down the border, because the border is amazingly interesting. I mean, many of the people listening to this are in Los Angeles, but you could get in the car, drive down to Tijuana, you could go to Calexico, you could go to El Centro, down there, really amazingly desert part of the border. Now, a lot of people watching this are near the border, and the border is amazing. It's a whole culture, as I discovered. And different from, every town is different. So I went up and down, went across. So it wouldn't have occurred to you, but then you're in a different line of business from me. I mean, you're a thinker, you're an active person, but your instinct isn't to go to a place. But I've often, I spent half my life thinking, well, I'd like to go to this place. How can I go? When can I go? So my wife did say it's dangerous, but then I said, well, that's an incentive. That's that provokes me to want to do it. Someone says, don't do it. It's dangerous. People in Texas were saying, when I drove down, I was in Corpus Christi and then in McAllen. I met people in McAllen, Texas, which is on the border, and I'd say, so what do you think about the other side? They said, I've never been there. Well, they're walking distance. They could actually go park their car, take a 10-minute walk. You put a coin in the turnstile in Hidalgo, and put a coin in, go through the turnstile, wave to the man at the end of the thing, and you walk in, and you're in Reynosa. In the plaza, Reynosa, there's lovely restaurants. It's a great place. Reynosa.
Put a coin in it.
You put there's a kind of ritual. There's a turnstile, and you put a quarter in to go into Mexico.
Wait, what about this wall that is 2,000 miles long and 50 feet high? And
well, I'm talking about going into Mexico, not coming out of Mexico. So that's going in.
But you have to come
out.
back.
That's another story. No, I'm a gringo, so they say on the border, soy gabacho, a bad gringo. So, but I met so many people who had never been across. And it's another country, it's another culture, it's another language, it's another history. It's amazing. I had a wonderful time. So yes, I was sacrificing my Under the Wave at Waimea. I put my novel aside. It was there in a folder on my desk. I had, I write in longhand, so it was. I had photocopied it and sent it. The car, I bought a 10-year-old Nissan, and I thought I normally drive a Toyota 4Runner, a new-ish one, which would have probably been stolen or carjacked. But no one carjacked me. My problems were all with the police. I had no problems with Mexicans. I made a lot of friends there. I loved it. I went back repeatedly. What I did was I went up and down the border, then in and then out again. And I left my car in Houston with a friend, Michael Zilka, who lives in Houston and has a big garage. So then I went, carried on, went home. I had a drink with my wife, and a few months passed. Then I went back to Houston, got the car, and then drove directly and then drove to Mexico City. I was a teacher for a while, in Mexico City. I was a student for a while in Oaxaca, and then I was an activist for a while with the Zapatistas in Chiapas. It was the most marvelous trip. I would say there was no sacrifice involved at all. It's one of the best trips I've ever taken, if not the best. So then I came back, fresh, full of ideas. I had been making notes about my novel, and resumed it. Haven't you ever done that? I mean, put something aside and thought, well, it's not quite right. I'll finish this some other time, or do you plow on to the end?
I just I'm like a snow plow. I just, I have this OCD, and I'm relentless. Once I get focused, there is no stopping me. So
Well, this is a 500-page manuscript, so
yeah,
the idea of I've done it. I've sat down and I've plowed through 500 or 600 pages and didn't take a break from it. But this book profited by it. But I was doing something else. I wasn't playing golf.
yeah.
But one of the things about, and people watching this or listening might be able to relate to, is that it helps sometimes to think about the thing that you're doing. Not always to have your nose to the grindstone, but to meditate on what you're doing. To think hard, so that when you sit down, you're not saying, now what? Where am I? Now what? What happens now? So that you're sitting down actually to do something. You're sitting down to write something, or whatever it is, to have a conversation, and that there's an element of preparation in it, that you don't really need to have your eyes averted from the world.
Okay.
And that it's profitable actually to engage in something unrelated to what you're doing. I mean, for example, people say, when you travel in India, what do you do? You read books about India? I said, no, I don't read books about India. I would read a book by Flaubert. I'd read Madame Bovary, or I'd read Moby Dick, or maybe some short stories by somebody with Faulkner or something. Just to have something to relieve that feeling that you're in India. So you leave India mentally, and you're reading a book about Mississippi, Faulkner, and that's kind of a relief. Then sometimes when I'm reading, I think, particularly an American novel, say Faulkner, that I emerge from the reading and I think, where am I? Because I've mentally been in Mississippi, and then you come out and you're kind of fresh, and you're reintroduced to the world. I think that's the thing that reading gives us. And Book Soup, I've been to Book Soup. It's a big, lovely bookstore. I actually quite a historic one, full of books. I mean, it has multiple levels and so forth. And that's that activity that I'm so stimulated by being in a bookstore, by reading, that has always stood me in good stead. That I started my life as a reader. Reader made me a traveler, and travel helped me become a writer. But reading also helped me become a writer. But reading is as an activity, not just occasionally, but actually becoming immersive, engrossed in the book, has been my life, actually.
Would you say that your advice to, for example, when you were in India, you were reading an American novel, that's for you and for when you're writing about India, but would you say that's good advice for all travelers? When you're in Japan, you read a story about Russia or something. Is it generalized advice, or is it just for travel writers?
Funny enough, I was in Calcutta, in the railway station in Calcutta, and there was I was going by train to Assam, and I was looking for a book to read, and I found Lady Chatterley's Lover, which is banned in India, but this was I don't know, pirated copy of it. I got it, and I had the most enjoyable trip in Assam, going to Assam on the train, just reading or rereading Lady Chatterley's Lover, which is actually a brilliant book about the class system, about post-war decadence in England, about the Bloomsbury group. Because Lady Chatterley is married to a kind of fake writer guy who fancies himself a writer, and he's injured. He's in a wheelchair. Your advice: no, you're in Japan. You've got to read books that will feed your brain about Japan, but you also need a little relief from that. So if I were in Japan, I mean, I was in Japan. I've written about Japan. I've been in Japan a number of times, writing. A ghost train to the Eastern Star. I went up to Wakkanai, to the very, very top of Hokkaido. And I read about that, snow country and books about Hokkaido. But I also read other stuff. I had a book of American ghost stories, I remember, when I was there. But you need to be informed about the place, but you don't want to be heavily influenced by a book. You need fresh impressions. I wouldn't read a travel book about Japan if I was in Japan, but I would definitely read Yasunori Kawabata. I would read Mishima. I'd read Haruki Murakami. I would read a novel. I would read short stories, because the writers in a place give you the place. They give you the soul of the place. Well, but I mean, you're lazy and ignorant if you're not reading about the place that you're in. But also, I'm talking about reading for pleasure.
Well, I will say that as someone who was born and raised in Hawaii, that someone going to Hawaii, reading your notebook would be very helpful to understand what's going on, because your book is extremely perceptive about what happens slightly beneath the surface of all that tourism. It's really, you have captured the essence of, Haole, anti-Haole, surfer, anti-surfer, all those kinds of things are in your book. It's beautiful. I mean,
that's very kind of you to say, because you're from here, you're a surfer, and you have a perspective of it. You understand Hawaii even better than many people in Hawaii, because you have your point of view. You're on the mainland now, looking at Hawaii from the mainland, and you don't really understand a place if you're immersed in it. The hardest place to write about is the place that you live in. It's your home. You have probably a greater ability to write about Hawaii now, living in California, than you would if you were living here.
That's probably true, yes.
It took me 30 years, actually, to figure out the complexities of Hawaii. Race, religion, class, weather. Just on Oahu, there are probably 30 microclimates. There's a town up the road, mostly Mormon. There's Laie. Down the road is Waipahu, mainly Filipino, ethnic Filipino. On the other side of the mountain, from or rather up the road, is Waianae, very local, very Polynesian. Go in another direction, just get in your car, drive 15 miles, and you're in Kahala, among billionaires, but very, very wealthy people. And go further to something else. So every valley is unique, is peculiar, and we have a lot of homeless people here.
Yeah.
So it's not palm trees and mai tais. That's what so-called travel writers write about. They write about Waikiki, the waves coming in, and having a drink and looking at the sunset. And that's all. That's true. That's fair. That's your if you're here for a week, that's your experience of Hawaii. If you live here, it's different. I lived in England for 18 years, and I was married to an English woman. My children were raised there, and people used to come and say, I'd say, "What are you doing?" "Well, we're going to see Phantom. Have you seen Phantom?" I'd say, "Well, what the hell is that?" It's a Phantom. Have you seen Phantom? Les Miserables? Have you seen it? I said, "Jesus, no! I'm working down here, paying my taxes. I'm fixing my bike. I'm taking my kids to school. What is Phantom of the Opera? You gotta see." They would come and just go to plays and go to the opera, and I never did that. Have you seen the Dickens House? Or we've been to Stratford. Oh, they're doing Hamlet at the National. And I said, "God, I'm busy. I'm living my life here. I don't." So you come to England as a tourist. You do these amazing cultural excursions. If you live there, you're on a bus. You're on a bike. You're taking your kids to school. You're making macaroni for, it's
You're not
different.
hanging
It's
out at Fish
different.
Museum, that's for sure.
No. Although I used to, I was a member of a private library, the London Library. So I used to go to the library, but I used to get my bike, drive to the library, lock my bike against the fence in front of the library. The library's in a lovely square in the West End, right off Oxford Street, actually. And I go to the library and then ride home. Or sometimes I walked. I would walk from my house, even though it was about 5 miles. London is in a valley. It's the Thames Valley. So when you walk down to the river and then you walk up. So you realize when you're walking or riding a bike what it is. So Hawaii is like that. People who come, and sometimes they say to me, "Have you been to the new sushi place?" Some guy from Chicago. What new sushi place? Well, they found it on Yelp or something, and I'm thinking, I'm in Haleiwa. All I know about is burgers. We don't have a.
What about shrimp? You've got to eat Haleiwa shrimp.
But the shrimp truck.
Yeah.
So no, but the tourists or the part-timer has a particular fix on a place, which is absolutely true. I mean, it's authentic. But the longer you stay in a place, the longer you live in a place, the more you see layers and layers and layers. And someone might say, well, we're on Nimitz. We went to this great restaurant, and I think Nimitz Highway is full of homeless people. Nimitz Highway is full of traffic, but there's also a couple of places I do know. So my take on it, I suppose, in a word, we all have our own maps of where we live, unique maps, peculiar to ourselves, of the routes we take, the people we see, the stories we go to. And the longer you live in a place, the more complicated your map, the map in your head. And when you're writing a book, you have to kind of figure out what your subject is. When you're writing about home, I think, as I said, it's a challenge. Someone said I'm from Medford, Massachusetts, which is just outside Boston. It's 10-minute drive to Boston. And I've written about it, but it was really, really hard to write about when I did write about it, because I had to kind of simplify it in my head to write about it. But Hawaii is so much more complex than I had originally thought. It's a delightful place. I love living here, but it's not easy to write about. And so the book is about the North Shore. It's about surfers. It's about the beach, but it's also the tribal nature of the surf community, their language, their music, their habits. And there isn't, you could say, do you think there's money in surfing? I think it's just a few people have endorsements and everyone else does it for fun.
Yeah, that is not a career path.
No, it's not. No. So I think that's the great thing about it, is that they say, who's the best surfer? It's the one having the most fun.
Yeah. So speaking of, somebody asked this very good question, which I know you're going to love, which is, quote, just curious if William Finnegan's Barbarian Days played any role in preparation for your writing.
I know William Finnegan. He comes here and surfs and so forth. But I had only, when I was writing the book, there's only one person I wanted to please. Not my wife, not my mother, not my kids. It was Bill Finnegan. And so I sent him, good question. So Barbarian Days is a great book. It's a first-person book, and there's a lot of Hawaii in it, and a lot of surfing in it, too.
Yes.
He lives in New York, but he surfs. He was surfing the other day in Long Island in a wetsuit, freezing his butt off, but still doing it. With ice and frost everywhere. So the person who asked the question might be reassured to know that Bill Finnegan read my book and gave me a blurb. He said, I don't have a book handy. It's something like, wait a minute. No, I don't have it. Something like, it's extraordinary. And then he praised the book. So it was great. It's just, you write a book about whaling and you think, Herman Melville gave me a blurb. That's great. So that's That's where it's at. So good
You write a
question.
book about dysfunction, and Donald Trump gave you a blurb. It would be. Another question is for both of us, actually. When, where is your favorite place, time to write?
Home is the answer. But I live on a large piece of land, and the first thing I did, I fixed up a house, and then I put up the building that I'm in now. You see my library behind. But so every morning I walk to work. I walk from up the hill down to this building, and I work here. Favorite place to work, right where I am now, sitting where I am now. Or I have a desk over there, and I have a desk here. That's number one. I also, in the afternoon, I often go to the beach. I have a folding chair. I sit on the beach and I read, and I often write. I have a clipboard and I write. See, if you write in longhand, you can do it anywhere. You don't really need any electronics. So the favorite place to write there. The other favorite place to write is I used to take a lot of trains, and I would say the ideal place to write is next to the corner seat, the seat next to the window, going through a country, Burma, Thailand, Africa, Mexico. Well, there aren't a lot of trains in Mexico, but if you found a train in Argentina, sitting the corner seat with a pad on your lap, looking out the window and describing the cows, the grass, just what you see, people riding, chickens, a group of people, if you're a camel or whatever it is, and you're just there sketching, just like sketching. So home, the beach, corner seat. What the requirements for writing are absolute silence, no interruptions, no problems, no issues, just kind of meditation. I need to have the whole day to myself. I can't say, well, I'm going to work tomorrow morning for a couple of hours and then I got to do something. If I have to do something that day, it's on my mind. I can't write because I know that I have this thing, and if I start writing well, I'll have to break it off in the middle of a sentence, and I'll be frustrated. How about you, Guy? Where's your favorite?
I got to add one more question. So you get up in the morning and you just start writing. You don't check email. You don't check anything else. It's just today is writing day.
I check email. I look at the news. I check email, but I do it in a very quick way. I don't engage in any contentious activities. I don't get into arguments. I don't write long email. I just reply, clearing my desk. I do that. Okay. Clear the desk. Look at the news. Look at headlines. That's what I do. And then get down to business. Then shut it off and get down to business. So that's I don't let it interfere. This is why I don't have another job. I'm not. I love teaching, but teaching is not compatible. A job is not compatible with what I do. I would rather earn less money. And when I started off, I earned a lot less money, but I got much more done. I quit my job in 1971. I was teaching in Singapore. That was the last job. I taught in Africa for 6 years before that. So I say October 1971, I quit. I thought, I can't, it's incompatible with what I want to do. I can't work and write, it's too hot. There are people saying, go to the meeting, interrupt. So I thought, I'm going to stop. And then I went to England, and I was just living in the country very cheaply. At that time, I mean, living for almost nothing, just in the wilds of West Dorset. And I got a book called St. Jack. People would say, you're a fool, what are you doing? You should work. Even my parents were saying, what are you doing? And my in-laws were shocked. They, what are you doing, Paul? I said, I'm working on a book. They looked at me as if to say, and you think that you can support our daughter on this pathetic income? You're a dreamer. They didn't say that, but I could see it in their glazed eyes. Wrote the book and sold the movie rights. Peter Bogdanovich made the movie. So, take that. I mean, my father-in-law, ex-father-in-law, late, lamented, rest in peace, was looking at the who's who, roundabout when he was even saying to me, like, what are you doing? What foolish, you're just sitting there in a room, right? And he looked at the who's who. He was looking up, he's a cricket fanatic. He was looking up a famous cricketer. And he didn't find the guy's name. The guy began with T. And then he said, an extraordinary thing happened, Paul. I said, what? Well, you wouldn't believe it. I was looking for this cricketer, Thompson, and I looked at the next page, and there you were. I said, what? He said, you're in Who's Who. I said, really? He said, yes, and you're in Who's Who. I said, well, what do you think of that? Isn't that amazing? Yeah, he was amazing. That you could actually write and get in Who's Who, that a cricketer would not be there, but I was there. Anyway, this is a long way of saying I hate interruptions, and I hate people questioning what I'm doing. I think I may not know 100% what I'm doing, but I know more than you do about what I'm doing. So, I'll be all right. And you know yourself. Much of what we do in our lives is instinct. It's not. Yes. It's not taking advice from someone. It's instinct. We think, yes, I feel this is the right thing to be doing, and so I'm doing it. And if you've got half a brain and a good heart, probably you'll succeed at what you're doing. You're doing it with the best of intentions, whether it's writing a book or surfing or knitting or, I don't know, taking your child to school or whatever it is, buying a bike. That's a good thing to do. That's the thing to do.
All right.
And it's only interruptions. Do you find yourself getting interrupted?
I am constantly interrupting, but a lot of that is because of my lack of self-discipline. And when I write, this pre-pandemic, I traveled so much, and not your kind of travel. My travel was, the nature of my travel is I fly into a city, I get there at night, I wake up, I speak, the next day I leave in the afternoon. I've been to almost every city in the world that way. So many of my books, I used to tell people, my favorite place to write is United 25B. And then as I got more successful, it became 5A. I know first. I don't know if my writing.
I know exactly what you mean. I know that I also write on planes. I have written on planes, and I think that there's no interruption on a plane. If you're on a long distance, you say leaving in the morning. Yeah. So you go to some place, you give your talk, usually profitable, I imagine. Next morning you get up, you get the plane, have your breakfast, and you say, and then the flight attendant says, "What will you have for breakfast?" You said, "No, I'm okay." And you sit there and do whatever. It's great. But it's great.
You know what has broken that productivity is now many planes have Wi-Fi. So
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I'd prefer a plane without Wi-Fi. I mean, I could make that case. So, I love that story about your father-in-law searching for the cricketer or cricketer or whatever you call that and find it. I'm going to tell a version of that story. I'm going to say, my kids' friends, they didn't know who I was. And one day they were looking in a Who's Who, looking up Kim Kardashian. And lo and behold, right after Kardashian was Kawasaki. And they didn't realize who I was until they read that by accident. That's going to be my version of that story. Okay.
That's good. That's good. Well, it gave me a little bit of credibility because until then, he thought I was just some dreamer. I don't know, who's likely to lead his daughter astray. But the other thing is, do your children know what you do? I mean, do they know what you do? Are they involved in what you do?
No. I mean, they have seen me speak. They have obviously seen the books that I've written. I spend much of my day now in this little 4x8 cave in front of a light and a camera. I'm not too sure they understand what's going on there. So I'll tell you some more questions to answer from the audience, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So one question is, you've written books that seem very autobiographical. Any regrets about revealing too much?
I don't have regrets about anything that I've written, really. My regrets are all in bad decisions, I suppose, of being... I mentioned this in a piece I wrote for the New Yorker last week it's about my big birthday. And I said, Henry James once said that his great regret was the life unlived. Things that he wished he had done that he didn't do. And a lot of his work is about men, usually men, sometimes women, who who love someone but don't declare it, who don't sort of complete it, who shrink back from it. They stay home. It's a kind of shyness, not timidity really, but shyness. So the life unlived, what a person could have done but didn't do. So that's the Henry James issue. And so there's a character in Henry James in The Ambassadors, he's called Lambert Strether, who says to Gilbert Osmond in the book, live all you can. It's a mistake not to. Live all you can. Mm-hmm. So my regrets are living all I could, just saying, well, I'll try that. Well, I'll go there. Well, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll have another one of those. Yeah, sure, I'll do that. And thinking, what a fool. I mean, greedy, foolish. So my regrets are always, maybe I shouldn't have tried to live so much, But as far as regretting, the question is about autobiography. The only thing, authentic experiences that I've had are, Mao Zedong said this, all true knowledge originates in direct experience. It's direct experience I have is what I've put in my books. That's the authenticity that I can claim, and no one can dispute it. I was there, I did it, I saw it, I knew this person. So yeah, I put my life into my books to a point where almost there's nothing else to write about. People have said, do you regret I wrote about my family. No, I don't know. No, because by writing about my family, I understood them better. Someone asked me the other day, Hunter Thompson, the writer, Thompson, the crazy drug addict, madman, Hunter Thompson, gun-toting Hunter Thompson, is in this book. He's in Under the Wave at Waimea. He's a character. He's not a character, it's him. I knew him. He came here. He's there. Someone said, you regret putting him in? Why would I regret putting him in? I saw him. People have questioned my decision to put the Queen. I put the Queen and Prince Philip in a chapter of a book called My Other Life. So My Other Life is called The Queen's Touch chapter. It's called like Queen. It appeared in the New Yorker long ago. Well, in the late 90s. That's long ago. And people said, "Well, sure, shocked." Well, actually, I spent an evening with the Queen, lucky me, and Prince Philip and a few other people at a private house. And the Queen turned out was telling these amazing stories. I mean, she was a great storyteller. And I thought, this is too good to wait. I gotta use it somehow, but I don't want to write about a column or like my audience with the Queen. Or I was having lunch, I'll have a bit more asparagus. And by the way, Your Majesty, what did you? So I thought, no, I'll use it in a short story. So I put Graham Greene in a novel called Picture Palace. Graham Greene appears in it. Do I regret any of that? No, I don't regret any of it. Someone asked me about a book I wrote called Servidio's Shadow. I had a friendship with the Nobel Prize winner, V.S. Naipaul. And then we quarreled, and I wrote a book about it. Yeah. A very breezy book about it. He had tantrums. He was very cheap. He always made me pay for meals. But also he gave me a lot. He was very friendly as well as being paranoid and difficult. Do I regret it? No. It's only personal decisions. Should I have done this? I mean, my marriage ended. That wasn't much fun. That was horrible. Maybe I was a fool in a lot of respects there. So there's things to regret. Okay. In terms of writing, no, nothing. No, it's all there. It's there. Publish and be damned. That's fine.
I don't know who said it, but somebody said, the unexamined life is not worth living, but the unlived life is not worth examining. So clearly you have a life worth examining. Yeah. Well,
all of us have things that we haven't put in the book. I wrote a piece about Samuel Beckett. Now, Samuel Beckett, the people watching this, they know Waiting for Godot, and they know that Beckett wrote these amazing novels: Malloy, Malone Dies, Murphy, The Unnameable, Watt. Great stuff. And they think he's really difficult. And Samuel Beckett, existentialist. Oh my goodness, how are we going to deal with it? I'll have to go to Stanford and study him. You know what Beckett did for fun, what he read? He read detective stories. He read Agatha Christie. He read Earl Stanley Gardner. He read George Simenon. He read detective stuff and whodunits. That's what he did for fun. And so, you know, we all have another side. And I always think about Beckett. So Beckett didn't write about it. There's a couple of detectives and things that he wrote, but it's not Agatha Christie. But isn't that interesting that here's this spare, ascetic, existentialist, Irish, living in Paris, writing in French. And what's he doing for fun? Oh, I think I'll read, you know, Murder on the Orient Express. You know? So you don't expect that, but I mean that's what reading done. That was his way of relaxing. So don't be self-conscious about reading detective stories. He did it, and probably many other people do it too.
All right. And one more question here. I think this is interesting. How did you decide on the name of the protagonist in Under the Waves?
All right. The protagonist is called Joe Sharpie. I know a man called Joe Sharpie. There's a travel writer called Joe Sharpie, writes for a lot of different papers. He's an older guy, and I remember meeting him. And he's a friend of my wife's. So my wife is in the travel industry, business, and public relations. And she said, we're having lunch with a guy. He's very nice. He's writing a story about a property that I had. I said, yeah, okay. And then I saw him at the restaurant. He said, hi, I'm Joe Sharpie. And I thought, oh man, I like that name. I had a teacher when I was in the second grade. I was in the Washington School in Medford, Mass. And the headmistress was called Gertrude Sharkey. So Gertrude Sharkey, very formidable woman. I mean, this was the late 1940s, early 50s. So very scary woman, Miss Sharkey. And Miss Sharkey, you know, the shark in Sharkey, that really worked. It's an Irish name, obviously. Jack Sharkey was a boxer. So Joe, how did I choose it? I just had it in my mind. And when I needed to name this character, it just came suddenly to mind. I thought, well, here's the perfect name, because Joe Sharkey, there's something called an Aumakua, which is kind of an ancestor that you're related to in Hawaiian law. And one of the guys I paddle with has a shark is his Aumakua. And he has a shark tattooed on his arm. So Joe Sharkey is known as the Shark. I thought it suits him so as a nickname and as a name. Naming characters, the person with the greatest names actually is Charles Dickens. And the character in Charles Dickens, any character in Charles Dickens has a name that absolutely suits him. So, you know, all the way through.
All right.
Mr. Gradgrind, David Copperfield, whatever. So, yeah, and then his girlfriend is called Olive Randall. She's English, and I thought Olive Randall, that's a good English name. She's a nurse. So there's the pair, Joe and Olive.
Okay. Any closing words for us?
I hope. Well, I would say
we should go on the road together, Paul. We would have so much fun.
I liked it, actually. I like giving talks, and I like doing what you did, which is you go to a place, you go to the hotel, you check in. Next morning, you give a talk, or you give a talk that night, and the next day you leave. And you're like a traveling salesman. You just go from place to place. It's enjoyable, it's economic, it's profitable, and it's fun. You meet people, and if you have something on your mind, anything on your mind, you could just ventilate it's what politicians must do. It's what they do. They go around and they ventilate all their feeling. You know, and I'm thinking, you know, what makes me mad? I'll tell you what makes me mad, and then or whatever it is, and you have a good thought. So yes, we'll go on the road. I think we should do it as a double act. But the only thoughts I have is that this book is related to Hotel Honolulu. So 20 years ago, in 2001, I published Hotel Honolulu, which is set downtown in Waikiki. A seedy hotel with 80 rooms, and there's 80 chapters, which are like 80 stories. And this is a country. This is a surface story. So these are two Oahu books. If I think of a third, I'll write the Great Oahu Trilogy. To be a third. I need an idea. And let's say at a certain point, these books overlap. In Hotel Honolulu, there's a chapter called A Game of Dice, where a man decides to give his wife a surfer for her birthday. And people were very shocked by my coming up with this bizarre notion of a guy saying, I'm going to give my wife a surfer. But actually, I know someone, a woman, who said, my husband gave me a surfer for my birthday. Aren't I lucky? And I thought, I'm so shocked. This is terrible. So it's a birthday in Hotel Honolulu, A Game of Dice, that happens. In Under the Wave at Waimea, we discover who that surfer was.
Huh.
It's Joe Sharpie. And so he goes to the Hotel Honolulu in the middle of the book, and so the book they have a link. So I would advise anyone coming to Hawaii. Those are 2 books you must read. They're long books. I mean, each one of them is more than 400 pages. But it's a long flight from where you're going. You can read it on the plane, read it on the beach, and then finish it on the way back.
Well, if you write a Hawaii trilogy, can you name a character Kawasaki in it? Is that out of the...
There are plenty of Kawasaki's here. Yeah, I don't have to tell you. There's plenty of Kawasaki's in Hawaii. And
no, I want to be in the book.
You mean in the book?
Yeah, I want to be a character in the book, like some Yakuza from Japan.
Oh, that's simple. That's simple. And that's the most believable thing. Then I went down the street. I needed some serious advice about my life. And I know a man who wrote a book about life experiences. And it was Guy Kawasaki. And he's written a dozen books. And Guy set me straight. Because you are. I mean... You're the man as far as writing about technology, but you're also a role model. You're in your 60s, your early 60s. Am I right?
Mid 60s, 66.
We'll say 6. You're a surfer. You're a surfer, and that's an admirable thing to do. That's
well, thank you.
That's a wonderful thing to do.
Coming from you, Paul, that is praise indeed. That is praise indeed.
No, it's true.
All righty. So my family is gonna come to Hawaii in July, and we're gonna come to your ranch and I don't know,
hang
out and eat guavas. I don't know, whatever you do at your ranch.
I feed the chickens. I get geese.
We'll have scrambled eggs and Portuguese sausage. How's that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll have a plate lunch. But
we'll make local mocos.
Local moco, that would be perfect. Oh, poke. I think we'll get poke. And
poke works.
We'll OD on poke. Thank you very much to the people at Book Soup who sponsored this. The book is called Under the Wave at Waimea. And if you put Guy Kawasaki in Amazon, you'll see the books that he's written, well worth reading. And I hope sometime, I have been to Book Soup. I'd like to come in the flesh, give a little talk, sign some books, hang out, and meet you personally.
All right.
Thank you. That's a wrap on our presentation. Thank you to all of our guests and to everyone who tuned in this evening. We greatly appreciate everyone's time and your support of independent bookstores. Support our bookstore and our authors and purchase a copy of tonight's featured book. Just click the green purchase button that reads Under the Wave directly below your viewer's screen. If you'd like regular updates on our upcoming events, make sure to follow us on Crowdcast and subscribe to our newsletter. Have a great evening, everyone, and stay safe.
Aloha.
Thank you. Aloha.